launch control possible. Hold on. If you are fortunate enough to be spending $250,000 on your daily commuter, or if you just desire to hang out with me in what will be one of our most exciting commutes to date, well then today's video is for you, because today we are driving this 2023 Lamborghini Urus S, or Urus if you're American, but I know that I will be corrected in the comments no matter how I pronounce the name of this Italian hyper SUV. I've never driven an Urus before, but I have driven all of the other cars that share the platform with this thing. So this is kind of the final boss, and I'm excited to take this thing on a drive and show you guys what it's like to live with today. I've driven the Cayenne, I've driven the Bentayga, I've driven the Q8, and this was the only one remaining. So before we get into the nitty-gritty and talk about why I think this actually makes a lot of sense for what it is, let's talk about this specific car that we have here in front of us. This is finished in Verde Turbine Lucido, which I assume is the Italian way of saying urban green, pretty similar to the color that we've seen on some BMWs, similar to the X5M I was driving earlier this year. I think it looks fantastic. Inside is finished in Terra Asia, which is kind of like a natural brown, like a King Ranch leather type thing. We'll show you once we get in there. We have orange calipers, and every Urus S comes with carbon ceramic brakes. This one has orange calipers, looks fantastic. Base price for this car, just under $230,000, but as spec'd, this Urus is $310 grand. We have $76,000 in options on this car, about a $4,000 destination fee, which bumps us just over that $300,000 price tag. But what I love so much about this car, and we'll kind of explore this throughout the video, is just how easy this is to live with, and just how nice it is to be able to get into a Lamborghini without having to make really any sacrifices. So let's walk you around this thing, and then we'll take it out on our little commute route. We'll commute it to downtown. Around back, the first thing I want to talk about is not only can you live with this car and commute with it, you can tow with it. We have the towing package on this tow hitch down here. This thing can tow 7,000 pounds, which means you can tow your GT3 RS or your Huracan STO behind this and have just the ultimate track day setup, which I think is fantastic. Let's pop open the boot, which is power, of course. And yes, this has a bit of the coupe architecture, the kind of sloping rear roofline, but you do get a pretty decent amount of room in the back. We have a 4-corner air suspension on this car. You can lower that down to make your load surface lower. Underneath the trunk floor, we have no spare tire. We have a toolkit, a goop kit, it looks like, tire inflator, and other stuff that you would expect, some tech for our sound system and other things. Man, I am just in love with the styling on this, and every time you look at it, you find a new line. You see a little bit more design language and all of the complex design that went into this thing. 2023 was the 60th anniversary for Lamborghini, so we have that little badge here in our rear quarter window. Let's take a look in the back seat, where you'll see we have frameless doors, which is pretty nice, kind of adds to that high-end feel, that coupe design language. And you can see that Terra Asia natural brown-esque leather in here, and let's go ahead and step in and show you what room is like in the back seat, because the price tag on this car does seem a little bit outrageous, and obviously the Lamborghini badge does elevate that a bit, but Lamborghini really makes up for this in all of these interior materials. If you've sat in a Huracan before, you know that sometimes things in those cars do feel a bit cheap, but the story is not the same here in this SUV. Everything you see, everything you touch is smooth, it's nice, it's quality. The headliner is leather. Where else do you see this unless you're in like a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley or something? Room back here is pretty nice as well. You do sit pretty low down to compensate for that coupe roofline, though you do have a bit of elevated headroom back here, which means if you are, you know, above 6 foot or something like that, I think you would still have a good amount of room back here. I'm 5'11", sat behind myself. I've got plenty of legroom. As I said, plenty of headroom as well. Fold down center console with some pop-up cup holders in here. And this actually clicks in, which is not something you see very often in any SUV. I imagine to mitigate rattling from this portion of the car. Details even down to these seatbelt buckles, which are trimmed in what looks like aluminum and this same leather that you get on the seats. So they've paid attention to just about every detail in this interior, and it certainly shows. This is a very nice place to be. It's gorgeous. It smells good in here, and I've had a good time over the last couple of days sitting in this Urus S. Let's pop the hood and talk about the business end of this car. This hood is made of carbon, which means it weighs next to nothing. When I went to open it for the first time, it sprung up. I wasn't necessarily expecting that. We have these functional vents on here, and well, here we go. This is powered by a 4-liter twin turbocharged V8. It makes 657 horsepower and 627 pound-feet of torque, and power sent to all 4 wheels via the ZF 8-speed 8 HP automatic transmission. A recipe for success, and in this car, I'll tell you, it certainly is. Not much to see under the hood here, but we do have this pretty nice looking engine cover, which says V8 Turbo Compresso Ordine di Ascensione, which I believe is the firing order, 137-26548. The Huracans all have this on their V10s, so I would imagine it's the same here in the Urus. This runs on 0W40 oil, and man, you guys, this thing has been an absolute blast to drive the last couple of days. And you may be thinking, oh, it's just an Audi with a bit of Lamborghini bodywork. And even if that is the case, Lamborghini has still had their hands on this. They've still been able to tune it in ways that the other cars that share this platform are not tuned. And it makes for the most exciting experience I think I've ever had in any SUV. And that's the way it should be. If Lamborghini's going to put their badge on an SUV, it definitely should perform how this thing does. So let's jump in, let's fire it up. We'll show you some of the tech up front, and then we'll go out and we'll do a little commute in this Lamborghini. To start your Urus, you have this pretty typical Lamborghini hidden start-stop switch, which just makes you feel like you're starting up a fighter jet. I absolutely love it. Start this thing up. Number of different drive modes, Strada being your normal mode. That is with your exhaust in quiet mode. Even in quiet mode, it makes a really nice, very rich, elegant noise. You can bump this down into Sport or Corsa, Sport or Race mode. That will open up your exhaust valves and give this thing a bit more personality here. Corsa's the most hardcore, of course. Wild noises from this thing. I mean, seriously. We also have a few modes for off-road: Sabbia, Terra, and Neve. I believe these are dirt, sand, and ice, or something. You can hold your Anima button down, and that will put you back into Strada mode, which is nice. You don't have to cycle through everything or even push back up, which you aren't able to do. But if you hold that, it puts you back into normal mode. Now, let's get the elephant out of the room here. A lot of things up here are very much Audi, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because if you get an SUV, if you get a car that you want to daily drive, you want things to work. And do you necessarily trust the Italians with doing an infotainment, doing a gauge cluster, doing switchgear in here that's going to hold up over time? Judging off of cars in the past, I would say probably not. So kind of handing this over to Audi does make a lot of sense. The only place where it kind of isn't the best are some of these buttons on the steering wheel. They still make nice clicks and everything, but some of this switchgear is the same as what you would see in a $40,000 Audi A3. So if you're offended by that sort of thing, try and look past it, because the driving experience of this car outweighs absolutely everything. You also have the option to program a personalized drive mode down here with the Ego button. You can switch all of your modes here and do the thing. Otherwise, we have this screen down here for our climate control, similar to what you'd see in an Audi. We have a volume knob. We have a very nicely reactive infotainment system with wireless Apple CarPlay. I've had no issues this week, as I usually do not when I'm driving other Audi products. Everything has a richness to it in this interior, and I think that's very important for when you're charging your customers over $250,000 for, let's be honest, a car with any amount of options on it is going to be over 250 grand. So in my opinion, they've done this properly. We have a Bang & Olufsen sound system in this. You guys saw those tweeters rise out of the dash when we fired this thing up. And in my opinion, it's one of the best sound systems on the market today. And it should be for $300,000, but you know, they've hit the mark there as well. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get this thing out on the road and we'll show you what it's like to drive. I'm excited to commute this thing. This will certainly be one of our most exciting commutes. I mean, it's days like this where I kind of have to pinch myself, because how often do you get to spend a couple of days in a Lamborghini? I mean, this is nuts. This is where I'm the most thankful for sure. I do love all cars, but these things make you feel a different type of way. All right, let's show you our in-house navigation as we jump onto the road here. To put your Urus into reverse, you have this very large panel that you pull back towards you. That will project your reverse camera and 360 camera there on the screen. Really nice, high quality HD cameras. I would expect no less from a car of this caliber. To put yourself into drive, you select this paddle here on the right side of the steering wheel. That will put you into drive. If you want to bump yourself into manual mode, there is an M button down here next to the start-stop button that will do that for you. Let's start today's drive in Strada mode, normal. And we'll kind of work our way up as we go along the spirited section of the test route. Forgive me, guys, I'm going to bump the AC up just a bit to get some air on our GoPro so we don't overheat. This is what I love so much about this car, is you're able to just get in it and drive it like it's a normal car. I mean, you could stick somebody's mom in this thing, and a lot of moms, I'm sure, do drive this car, and it all makes sense now because it's just easy. I mean, just effortless shifts from that 8-speed automatic. The world would be a better place if all automatic cars just had this ZF 8HP, because it is perfection as far as automatics go, in my opinion. The torque, the buttery torque from this thing. 40% throttle, it's smooth, it doesn't lurch, the throttle tuning is beautiful. But then you can take your Anima selector, bump yourself down into sport mode. Makes a really nice click. We're gonna go manual mode as well. Why not? I know I talk a lot about like the whole Jekyll and Hyde thing. This car does it the most out of, I think, anything, because it's so elegant and refined in Strada, and you hit this Anima switch one time. And it becomes a giggle factory. Oh my goodness. What other SUV do you know that can do that from the factory? I am getting my $300,000 worth of laughs and smiles in this Lamborghini. Corsa mode makes things even more hardcore. This is your track mode. So obviously it sounds good, and it is bonkers fast as well. This is one of the fastest SUVs I've ever driven. Got the steering, the suspension. Lamborghini took this platform and they made it their own. I mean, I guess you could compare it to an Audi, but it's like an Audi that snorted a line of substance that I'm probably not allowed to talk about on YouTube, but my goodness. Let's go this way. Why not? Me all week letting off at 5,000 RPM so I could create thunder behind me. Let's try not to scare the family pulled off here. We're going to go over here and we're going to do a launch control, because why not? And then we'll jump out on the highway and we'll, do the whole thing. Crack the windows for a sec. See if we can bounce some noise off of these shipping containers. Oh yeah. No, that's the stuff. Could you imagine this with an aftermarket exhaust? Alright, let's do a launch control. All you gotta do, put yourself back into drive. So we're going to hit our M mode. We're already in Corsa, and left foot on brake, right foot on accelerator, release brake. Launch control possible. Hold on. And that's good for 60 in what Lamborghini claims 3.5 seconds, and I believe them, if not faster. I think I've got all of my spirited driving out of me for the most part. This thing's a treat. It's so funny how the internet kind of spreads this misconception. It's all people that have never driven this car, obviously, of, oh, it's an Audi, blah, blah, blah. It's just a $300,000 Audi. It doesn't drive like one. And it doesn't sound like one either. All right, one more. And it'll hold gears in Corsa. In Sport, it won't. It'll shift up for you at red line, but come on. We had to try out the rev limiter there. Collect myself. Hold Anima back into Strada, back into drive. And let's relax and try and find some peace and tranquility here in the Urus. Try and reprogram myself to drive like James May. That's what I'm programmed to do anyways. Pretty customizable gauge cluster here. Just kind of your normal stuff, you know. I like to leave it in here to see my MPG, which over the last 103 miles has been 10.9. You guys can probably imagine how I've been driving this thing, but if you were to kind of drive it like a normal person, I could see you achieving close to 20, probably just under 18, 19, something like that. Instantaneous. On some of my short-term trips, I have seen numbers similar to that. On the right-hand side, you can see a number of different displays. I usually leave mine on the G meter just because I think it looks cool. And I gotta be honest, as much as I like driving this in a spirited fashion and making all sorts of obnoxious pops and burbles and snaps and cracks, where this car really starts to make sense is this part of the journey, the commute. When you want to just settle this thing down, get it out on the highway, do your normal driving, it is more comfortable than I could have ever imagined. Okay, GoPro overheated there as I was trying to make my point, but this is honestly where this car shines, is when you get it out onto the highway. And we'll give you a second to observe our NVH here as we make our journey here on the highway. It is seriously whisper quiet in this cabin. And this is with the vent speed on 4. Try and keep it cool in here. Cruise control is as simple as pulling this stalk towards you and pressing the button on the end. We have adaptive cruise on this. Obviously with the Audi influence here, all of the tech works just fine as far as driving tech goes as well, even beyond our infotainment and switchgear in here. And she's comfortable. It's floaty. I mean, feel like I'm in a Cadillac going down the highway in this. With the car in Strata mode, this 4-corner air suspension really softens up. I mean, you forget you're in a Lamborghini, and that's kind of nice when you're in a setting like this, I've got to be honest. You can set yourself up pretty nicely in this car. Driving position, you can get really nice and low, and the seat is comfortable, it's supportive. You've got a lot of adjustment down here for your lumbar and everything like that. Elbow comfiness, pretty soft. It's more spongy than anything, but you feel that there's a lot of depth to this rubber material that they put under the leather. So I haven't really had any fatigue driving this car. Positioning and shape of the steering wheel is nice as well, and you're able genuinely to float down the highway in this car. And it's nice because you can drive a Lamborghini and you're not overwhelmed. You're not intimidated by this car, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. So why don't we test out this Bang & Olufsen sound system, because I've been dying to show you guys just how good this system is. So let's play our couple of songs that we usually play, and this is set at its factory EQ, and surround is right in the middle, so exactly how it comes. You guys know we have important research to conduct up here. We'll talk about the sound system in just a second. All right, don't let the Lamborghini in. I get it, I get it. It's okay, because we got to make the best noise. Okay, let's talk Bang & Olufsen here as we get into the final part, our little city section of the commute. Pulling up to the office. The complexity, the detail, the power of this is unlike any other Bang & Olufsen system that I've ever heard, and that includes systems that are in cars like the Audi SQ7, which leads me to believe that they have done some bespoke tuning in this car. Obviously, they've stepped it up just a bit for the Urus. You know, you're spending 3 times as much as you would on similar Audi cars, so you get, well, 3 times the sound system, I suppose. Don't know if I'd go that far, but it is certainly better. Back into Strada for this bumpy section up here. And that leads me into one of my other favorite things about this car, and that is just how small it drives. I mean, and that is, as far as the placeability, the steering feel, everything about this car, it does not feel like 2.5 tons of Lambo. It's very manageable. I mean, shoot, even visibility is pretty good out of this thing. It's not the best in the world. I was driving the new Land Cruiser earlier this week, which is basically like an open barn, greenhouse, whatever. You can see out of that thing very easily, but I'm pretty comfortable in this car. Unfortunately, you don't get a rear view camera mirror, which is something I'd probably like to see just based off of the $230,000 base price of this car, but you are still able to see out of this pretty well. Over the shoulder visibility, decent. I mean, I'm not complaining. I don't feel like I can't see out of this car. And with the extravagant exterior design, I would say that that's pretty high praise for this thing, because I was expecting to feel like I was driving a Camaro, to be honest, with just how this looks from the outside. But I guess the point I'm trying to get across here is that for a lot of the reasons that people rip on this car, I really like it for those reasons. All of the Audi switchgear in here, okay, sure, whatever, you can rip on it for that, but it makes sense. It makes this car usable. It makes it approachable. Driving this car around in Strada mode, it's so approachable. Anyone could drive this. You could put your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandpa. Anyone could get in this car and they could drive it with absolutely no problem, and I do love that. After you obviously, you know, show them how to put it in gear and stuff. Apart from the weird sort of Lamborghini bits that are down here, very, very approachable. It's so smooth and effortless, and it can tow 7,000 pounds. So not only can you commute daily in this car in quietness, plushness, but you can tow your race car behind you and have the most excellent track day setup possible to imagine. So in that way, this car makes a whole lot of sense. And also in the way that if you're somebody that's always wanted a Lamborghini, but you don't want to make the sacrifices that you have to make in order to drive one, this makes a lot of sense. It's a Lamborghini, and it can be a Lamborghini when you want it to be, but with one flip of this switch down here, you can turn it off. And I think that that is excellent for normal people that want to have a Lamborghini, that want the badge, but don't want to make the sacrifices. Here you go. This is the car. And normal Lamborghinis still exist. They're not going anywhere. This is just an addition to the lineup so more people can get into these cars, and I don't really think that that's a bad thing.
Welcome. Please proceed into the lot.
There we go. At a good height to grab a ticket. Oh, I'm going to be a child in here. You guys already know. This might be the day I get thrown out of this parking garage. Yep. Okay. What did you think was going to happen? All right, one more. Okay. All right, we're done. Shut it down. Back into Strada, windows up. And if anyone's up here, they will simply see just a green SUV. All right, guys. Well, that is going to wrap it up for us today. As you can see, a car that has been controversial, has been hated on, and has gotten a lot of hate that I don't really think it deserves. It's capable in more ways than one. It's able to settle down and be an excellent daily driver, or you can put this thing into Corsa mode and make a huge racket, have a whole lot of fun, and remind yourself that you are indeed still driving a Lamborghini. So a car that I hope sticks around, a car that I hope we see more versions of. They just announced the SE, the plug-in hybrid version of this thing. And of course there is the Performante, which makes the same amount of power as this, but just weighs a bit less, has a bit more carbon things going on with it, of course. I don't think I've set myself up very nicely here, but check out how maneuverable this is. Oh, this is an angled parking spot. Oh, fantastic turning circle, though. Park button is there to the left of your start-stop. You can pull that parking brake. And that's it. That'll end it. Let's jump out, take one last look at this car.
Your mobile device is still in the vehicle.
That's another thing. Same lady that you get in the Audis, she comes in the Urus as well. Okay, anyways, that's it. That'll wrap it up. Any questions you guys have about this thing, please let me know. I've spent a couple of days with this, which is a couple of days more than I ever would have expected to spend in one of these cars. So thank you to Lamborghini for tossing the Topher and I the keys to this thing for a couple of days. And also thank you to the Topher for making it possible for me to spend my days in cars like this. Never thought that this would be my life. So if you guys haven't already, go over to the Topher, show him some love, because I don't think there's any amount of gratitude I could ever express to him to make him understand how much he has done for me. But it's days like this where it all really becomes very real. So, okay, didn't mean to get that deep there. But anyways, that has been the Lamborghini Urus S. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Thank you for 50,000 subscribers, and I've got goosebumps. All right, I need to stop, but see you in the next one. All right, take care.